Next, I think we're going to set up the life system. The life system is going to be pretty straightforward, and I thought about using it as a challenge, but I think going through it one more time wouldn't be a horrible idea because we are going to use some similar stuff that we've used in other parts of our code, like accessing our level manager by tag, and we're going to use a coroutine for losing our lives. But we'll go through it, and I think that you'll really get the hang of this one pretty quickly. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that there's a visual cue to my player because whenever I get hit by an asteroid, I want to reset my player in the middle of the scene, and then I want to also turn on a shield so that my player isn't getting hit by anything for a few seconds, so that if there are any asteroids nearby, I have a chance to escape them. So I'm going to put a shield sprite into my hierarchy here. Maybe. I want to put it under my yellow player. I'm going to put it the first one under my yellow player. Reset it to 0 because I want it to be right there. So whenever it turns on, it will appear around my player like this. Now I have it behind the player right now. If I wanted to, I could change the order and layer to 1 and then change the opacity of it so that it looks like it's kind of over top of the player. I kind of liked it underneath of it though, so I'm going to leave the opacity all the way up and set the order and layer back to 0. So that way it looks like it's just kind of this cool bright shape around the player. I'm going to set this to inactive because for right now I don't want the shield to appear, kind of like our thrusters are there, but they don't turn on until later. So I'm going to apply that back to the prefab. And then I'm going to go into my player script, and I need to open that first because I don't have it open right now. So in the player script, we need to add the idea of lives, so an integer that represents our lives. We need to get access to our level manager in our start, and we need to mess around with our coroutines because we have one coroutine already for player death, so we need to have another one for what happens if you're just losing a life instead of dying. So let's go through all that. Up here at the top, I'm going to make yet another header. We'll call this one, actually I'm going to put it way at the top. So I'm going to do, first I'm just going to put my stuff in because it'll get mad at me if I put a header over there's nothing. So I'm going to do a serialized field. It's going to be an integer and it's going to be called lives, lowercase. And I'm going to start with 3 lives. 3 lives is a pretty standard amount of lives. I'm also going to have another serialized field. This one is going to be a bool. And I'm going to call this is invincible. So remember, bools are like questions. You want to be able to answer them yes or no. So now I'll put the header in at the top of this, and I'll call this group player states, which just means whatever state the player is currently in, or something that changes the state of the player. Because we might have some power-up states and things like that here at the end of our game whenever we're finishing things up, because that's kind of something that really will add some polish to our game. I'm going to need the screen wrap open right now. We do need to set our level manager in here. So remember on our Comet and our start method, we had this right here. So we had a game object called level manager, and then we had this find with tag. So I'm actually going to grab this, wholesale copy it. I'm going to put it in player. I'm going to put it under player states because the level manager is going to be controlling the player states. It's not maybe the best place, but it's the only place sorted that kind of makes sense. And then I'm going to copy this other piece of code that I know I need in my start method. Put that there. So now it will look for the level manager whenever it's in the scene so that we can update our life stuff. And think that's all we need to do is start. So mostly we're just dealing with what happens whenever we collide with something. So I'm going to minimize all this stuff so you don't have a bunch of extra stuff to look at. So we are looking at whenever you run into something, this happens. So we're going to say if exclamation point is invincible. So saying if you are not invincible, do these things. So I'm going to enclose that. So if you're not invincible, then you'll die. And then we're going to say if lives is greater than 0, we're going to do something. And then we're going to say else do this. So if lives is greater than 0, we're going to do something in here, and then else we're going to start the coroutine player death. Because if we don't have any more lives, obviously it's time to die. So let's make a new coroutine. I'm going to put it above player death. I'm going to call it I enumerator. Lose life. And as with all methods, it's open and closed. So I'm going to just go ahead and come up here and say start coroutine parentheses, lose life, parentheses, and semicolon. And now this needs some stuff in here. So first, as soon as you get hit, we want to turn on is invincible. We're going to turn this on to true, because if we get hit, we don't want to get hit a bunch of times. We just want it to happen once. Next, we need to subtract a life off of our lives count. Right now it's set to 3, so we're going to say lives. And then we could do minus equals 1, or in this case, we're just going to go minus minus, saying take 1 off. That's shorthand for that. And then, interestingly enough, there's a lot of stuff down here that we still want to happen. We still want to play a sound. We still want to create an explosion. And we're still going to wait for a few seconds and do something. So I'm going to grab these first 2 bits of code and just copy them over, because I know I want exactly those things to happen. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab this, because I know I'm waiting for a few seconds before I reappear somewhere else. And we want to destroy the explosion that we've created, which we can't just type destroy explosion, right? Because that's not going to work. So we need to make it so that this is instantiated as explosion. So game object explosion equals this particular instantiation. So it'll wait 2 seconds and then it will destroy that animation. And then we want to reset our position, transform dot position. We're going to set it equal to a new vector 2. And this new vector 2 can be anything. I'm going to use 0, 0. That's going to be the direct center of the screen. So that's what I want that to have happen. Right there. Okay. So basically what should happen now is as soon as I get hit, it's going to check if I'm invincible. If I am invincible, then it's not going to do anything. If I'm not invincible, it's either going to take away a life if I have more than 3 lives, or it's going to play the player death scene. We also have to do a little bit to our level manager, right? Because we don't have any way to update our score on our level manager, or update our lives on our level manager, rather. So let's come over here, and we need to add a place to put in our life text. So serialize field. Mine's a Text Mesh Pro, UGUI, life text. And then under here, I need something that is going to tell it. So right now I have these add to score and update score and reset game. So first I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to get rid of some stuff that we're not using. So we do use update score, but remember last time we made it so that add to score is something we do not need. I'm going to get rid of that. We don't use our update method at all in this, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to leave that because we will eventually add an audio to it. I'm going to get rid of this commented code. There we go. That feels a lot cleaner, right? Okay, so in here we need something we're going to use the same method here where we added points and we used points that we got from another area. So we want to put that in our player in here somewhere. So let's go ahead and say underneath add our lives parts, we'll say level manager dot send message. And the message we want to send is the name of the method and what we're putting into it. So I'm going to say manage lives is going to be the name of my method. And comma, we're sending to it the number of lives we currently have. So, okay. So, on our level manager, we need to put manage lives on here. So I'm going to put it under my void start and above this other one. So it's going to be public void manage lives, parentheses, I'm looking for an integer, call it lives. And then we're going to use something very similar to this right here. We're going to take our live text and we're going to set it equal to a new number. So alright, so when I play this, you'll notice a funny little error. So if I were to run into something with great effort, okay, now it says lives 32, and that is because it took the text and it added to it what my current life is, but I don't want it to exactly do that. What I want it to do is I want it to take and change the text to lives colon space, and then that's going to, oh, never mind. I'm putting it on the wrong one. Command X. Command V. There you go. And it's getting an integer from that, from right here. So it's going to, not plus equal, it's going to equal. So lifeText.text is going to equal lives, and then it's going to take this and turn it into a string. So this should be good now. Except now it's wanting something here, and I'm confused about why it wants it here, because I know this code works elsewhere. Oh, it wants a plus between here. That's why. Okay. Now this should work. So we're saying change the text to lives plus the number that it currently is. Now it's equal to 2, and I'm invulnerable, and because I haven't set it so that I'm never not invincible, I'm going to be invincible forever until I fix that. So now let's go to our player, and we need to make it so that this gets turned back off in our collision. So whenever we lose our life, we want to turn on the shield and then use the shield to set our whether or not we are invincible or not. So we're going to do another coroutine. This one is going to be enumerator, just like all of our other coroutines. We're going to set this one called shield active. Parentheses, curly brackets, and then we're going to turn that on right here, right after we move to our new spot. So we're going to say start coroutine shield active inside of there. So a coroutine is calling another coroutine after it's taken a certain amount of time. So here we need to create our shield, which remember we dragged into our hierarchy already as a child of our current object. So we're looking for a game object that's transform is get child. So we're looking for the child of our current transform, and we're looking for the 0th child, which is the first child in the list, so at the very top of the list. So make sure your shield is at the top. And then we're going to say, take that game object and set it active. And in parentheses, we say true, because set active is a bool. It's a check mark on our inspector. And we're going to yield return new, wait 4 seconds. And let's say we're invulnerable for 3 seconds. Seems like a good amount of time to figure yourself out. And then we're just going to take this code, paste it, and instead of true, we're going to set it back to false. And then we're going to take our is invincible and set it equal to false as well. So now we're saying you move to 0, 0, turn on this child, wait for 3 seconds, turn it back off, and then turn off invincibility. So this should be basically all of our functionality. So now, if I get hit, which this asteroid should be coming right here. Of course I miss it. I'm waiting for it, so of course I miss it. So it will respawn. I have the shield. It waits for 3 seconds. It turns back off, and I should be able to get hit by this next asteroid. Perfect. And my lives is down to 1. Let's double check that I can die. Once my lives are down to 0, I've got one more life left to live. My player ship is destroyed. It ran the death screen, and it took me to game over. Perfect. So now we have a life system set up so that our game can tell us if we, or can tell whether or not we still have lives left and act differently based on whether or not that's true. You now know how to turn on and off a child object of this. So right now this is the 0 child object right under the yellow player, and it will turn that one on and off on cue. And I think next is down to spawning our asteroids and making it so that it's increasingly difficult. And yeah, that's going to be fun.